Welcome. My name is Tony Watts. I'm the host of Triumphant TV. Tonight, I have my team assembled. We are Shop Talk, and what we do is we discuss what's going on in the world and how men can step up their game. Unfortunately, the manosphere has us off balance. It has us dividing sides of what women should do and what men should do. Our concentration will basically be on how to step up and be a man. There's 5 members to the group. One of our members, Rick Gunterman, is off doing his thing, doing his other business right now. If he can jump in, he'll jump in for a few minutes to say what's up. But before we get started, tonight's episode is going to be about the impact of a fatherless generation. The impact of a fatherless generation. And now we're going to look at this from 2 different angles. The father who is not here and the father who is in the home, who was not really there. All right? So now we know what the topic is going to be about. Please jump in the comments. Tell us what you like. Ask us any questions. And, we'll try to get through those. We won't be before you long. That's that church talk, so we might be here for 18 hours. Might be here for 18 hours now. So I'm going to go around the screen counterclockwise so everybody can introduce themselves. So that would be Tony Massey first, then that would be John Singletary next, then that will be Derek Jones last, and then we'll jump into it.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tony Massey, the lesser of the 2 Tonys. I yield to the great one. I love this, man. Shop Talk has been a passion that I discovered talking to these brothers about manhood, fatherhood, brotherhood. It's been wonderful. I'm really excited about the topic tonight, especially since Father's Day was yesterday. So shout out to all the fathers out there. Happy belated Father's Day. You can find me, Tony Massey Speaks on Instagram, Tony Massey Cooks on Instagram, as well as on YouTube.
Man, I don't know why y'all listen to this brother talking about the lesser of 2. These 2 brothers together, we call them TNT because when they get together, it's explosive. That's what I'm talking about. But I'm John Singletary, the host of the Help Myself podcast. I am honored to be with these brothers. Real shop talk, man. We're talking about healthy masculinity, strong manhood, solution focus. We're not focusing on the problem. We're focusing on bringing our solutions to the problem. And I'm representing fathers that stepped out. So James Evans raised me, raising strong black fathers since 1974.
Nice.
What T-shirt game, on.
All right. My name is, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shop Talk tonight. Like I don't think any of us realize the synergy, man. This thing just feels organic, and I'm happy and I'm proud to be shoulder to shoulder with these brothers. I'm the host of the Relationship Gumbo podcast, and we air every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. And you can find me on IG it's on the screen, relationship_gumbo. But I'm just really interested in getting into this, so we'll talk about all the other pleasantries later.
All right, cool beans. Let's go. So the topic at hand is the impact of a fatherless generation. So a generation is about 80 plus years or so. So we take this back to what it was at the 50s, right? And if you start looking around the statistics back then, you see that men and women were married at a higher rate. They were together at a higher rate. They stayed together longer at a higher rate. What seems to have happened is that somewhere along the line, we've missed that thing, that marriage thing, or men being in the homes. I think one of the issues is when we adopted a couple of things that popped in when the government started giving assistance to homes and stuff like that. So one of the reasons the man could not stay in the home at that particular time was because for the woman to get the money, the man could not be around. And when you started doing that, you start separating the family. Now, if you really think about that as an aspect, right? So let me back up for a second and tell you a fable. A quick saying, it's an Indian saying, right? The man who can shoot an arrow, right, and kill somebody is a skilled archer. But the one who can kill from the womb is a dangerous warrior. So if we look at what's been happening to us, right, we have over incarceration, we have the separation of family. So there's a scheme, right? And trust me, I'm going to back out of this soon. I'm not blaming the white man. I'm showing you how things happen, how the dominoes fall, and we follow suit. This is what I'm showing you. This is not a blame game. On this show, we do not talk down about women and what women should do, and we compare ourselves to women. We don't do that here. We're here to talk about the man's place and how the man has to step up. That's what's important about the conversation we're having. So when you start looking at the dynamics of what's been going on for men, right? You have a whole generation of men being pulled out of the family structure, right? So therefore, if you have a certain segment being pulled out, the child is not getting both sides of the pie that the child needs to get to mature correctly. And this goes for girls and boys, right? So if I don't have a father in my home, where do I look for guidance? Because I don't care what thug you talk to. At some point, he looked for a male role model to emulate, even if it was another thug on the street. He had to find someone to emulate. So when we say these kids don't have any guidance, don't know what they're doing, they're looking for somebody to emulate, and we haven't been there for a very long time. So that's what this conversation is going to be about. Okay, Tony, let's jump in, and we'll go around again. Everybody get their little spiel about how they think that looks.
I love this conversation because it brings everything back to where it belongs, and I'm glad that we are avoiding blame, especially pointing fingers to the system, to the white man, to all this other stuff, because we know the system is corrupt. We know the system was designed to be oppressive, but that doesn't mean that the system has to affect us if we just stay out the system, right? And I realize that there are going to be those one-offs, there's going to be those situations where we really are victims. But if we're honest as men, when it comes to our families, some of the victimization that we suffer or that we claim is due to what we cause. Yes, there was a time where the government pushed us out of our homes. But once you recognize that, it's like that saying, once you know better, you do better. We have an obligation, maybe not to stay in the home, but at least to be present, at least to have your presence felt in the lives of your children. Your children should not wonder who their father is. Because here's the thing that I know to be true. Riding a bike, doing those first things as a child, you can skip all of that and still be okay. But when that child gets to a certain age and they realize how your absence has started to affect them, that's when it's too late. I'm 44. I still look to the paternal, father figures in my life for guidance now more so than ever, because no one tells you, there's no book on how to be a man. Sometimes you just got to figure it out. And there's so much negative influence out there. Even in my 40s, I can be a victim of someone else's manipulation as it relates to manhood. I'm also really happy that we're talking about the man who's in the home, but not impacting the home. More is caught than taught, right? It doesn't matter what you say. It's all about what you do, because that's what's being imitated and then emulated. Just because you're present doesn't mean that your presence is really felt in that home. And the last thing I say before I pass the mic, there's not a man on this planet that will tolerate anyone disrespecting his mother. And I don't care what kind of mother she was. She could have been a horrible mother. Not a man on this planet, especially a black man, is going to stand for another man to talk trash about his mother. So for those men out there who have issues with their baby mama, you cannot look your son in the eye and say, I love you, while simultaneously disrespecting his mother. And that means calling her out her name. That means, putting your hands on her. He sees all of that. And at some point, that young man is going to decide, I'm going to stand up and protect the woman in my life. And that's my mother. And if you're not going to do it, or if you're threatening her, then that's where that Oedipus complex comes in. It's going to be me or you, Chief. So there has to be a level of respect, maybe not admiration, maybe not adoration. There's got to be a level of respect that you have for your son's mother, especially your son. If you want that child to respect you, you got to respect the woman in his life.
Man, I love that. I love that. I don't think y'all caught it, man. Fatherhood, man. I just displayed it and y'all didn't even see it. I was barking out orders to my son, but I was gritting my teeth like that. So, but I mean, we've got to be present. And I guess what I will say is that I'm uniquely positioned to speak on the absence of a father in the home and how it impacts you as a man. Because, like Tony was saying, I'm 45 and, therapy, all kind of stuff to kind of come to a conclusion. And what it is for me is that I know what my son means to me, and I know what fatherhood means to me. And I know I could never walk out on that responsibility. And from that perspective, sometimes you start to think, well, if my son is so special to me, my dad walked out, you know what I mean? So like, what does that say about me if I wasn't special enough for him to stay? And so you grapple with that and the challenge of raising a son on my own without the cosign of a father, and how important that is. And it's a struggle. And one of the biggest mistakes we make is trying to be what our father wasn't, or maybe, and what he didn't bring. And I found myself getting in a bad cycle because I can't be what he wasn't. I can only be what I am. And you have to learn that. And there's a meme out there and I love it. It says, hey, dad is tired, dad is discouraged, dad is all these other things, but dad's still going to show up. And sometimes that's really the essence of it. Isn't that I'm out here winning. I'm not getting awards for being a dad, but I show up. And kids, man, they respect that. They see that you're showing up day in and day out. And I tell you what, it's one of those things like if I'm trying to teach my kid how to say sugar and he's saying, yo, it don't make sense because the way that they taught me the language, that should be sugar and not sugar. But am I going to say, yeah, man, the white man holding me down and that's a messed up situation? Or am I going to stay on my bike and tell my son, hey, but this is the language. This is the currency you need to live in this world that we live in. So you got to learn how to say it the way it's supposed to be said. So as fathers, man, sometimes it's about, just staying on your bike and just doing what you can. And I'll put another point out there. Kier Gaines, he's a therapist out here in the DC area and he's gone viral. I was gonna try and get with that brother, but Oprah had him on her show, so he done. But Oprah gonna come get us soon enough too. You know what I'm saying? So, but he made a point today on his Instagram feed, and he talked about how brothers that aren't in their children's lives, they feel it. There's an embarrassment. A lot of them. There's an embarrassment. They feel the shame. And sometimes as positive men, we've got to go back and get these brothers and say, hey, we can restore you, because it's real easy to say, and I say it. So it's real easy to say, I don't have no brothers in my circle that ain't good fathers. If you ain't a good father, you can't be in my circle. But sometimes they need that grace. They need to be extended because maybe they can be restored and they can't, go back and fix what was done then, but they can step in now and have a new relationship. Because at any point in time in my formative years, in my teen years, in my 20s, my dad could have came back and we could have rocked. I resolved that in my 30s, but we don't got that kind of relationship. He's just a dude I know. He's funny, but I only deal with him when I deal with him. And that, that's what it is. So that's all. Like, I'm gonna give it on up to Derek, man. Let you take over from here, brother.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. The point I want to make, it's a couple of points. The first point is the father being absent, right? What we have to look at now, that like there's generations, below us. We're all, of a certain age, and we get to see, whether we like to admit it or not, we get to see the fallout from the women we date, from the kids that we see out here. We may not consciously know that that's what it's from, but a lot of it comes from a place. The behavior that we see in some of these women and men come from a place. And the point that we all kind of made about the father being in the home but not present, I didn't realize how serious that was until like this year, until I had someone on my show that talked about fathers being absent. The end result of a father being in the home, not present, not emotionally available, has almost the same outcome as the father that's not there at all. And that blew my mind, because a lot of men will say, but I was there. I paid the bills. I paid the child support. I was there. But you don't realize that kids need that hands-on from both parents so that they can have that discernment when they grow up to understand how to respect one another. Because you take the man out, right? And that son is looking for the person that's going to show them how to treat a woman. And they don't have that. Even with the mom being alone, doing what she got to do, he doesn't have an example of how to treat a woman. And then he grows up to become a guy that has no respect sometimes for women. And on the other hand, on the other side, the woman, the little girl, is looking for her father to be the example of what she may run into one day. And if she doesn't have that, she's going to be searching for it in probably a lot of the wrong places. I'm not saying this is every woman, but a lot of women deal with this for their whole lives. And a lot of them, because as a coach, I talk to a lot of them, they don't even know that that's where it comes from. They just know that they picked the same type of dudes for the past 15 years, and they don't understand why. And a lot of times when you ask them, either was the father there or was he there, but was he hands-on? They're like, no. And that's not always mutually exclusive, but a lot of times you can draw your behavior amongst a lot of different things from when you were a kid, and the father not being there and or the mother not being there. But we talking about fathers tonight. We don't know how serious that is until we see the end result. Once you get to these age of 40s and 50s and you see all of the behaviors of the women that you probably met, and you see all of this stuff and the promiscuity and all the things that could come from that. Once, to Tony Massey's point, once we know better, then it's our job. And also to the point of us even doing all of this, we have to be able to reach back and say, hold on, we know what this look. We've seen this. We've seen what this looks like on both sides. We've seen these dudes joining gangs looking for a dad. We've seen these dudes killing each other because they don't know no better, because they didn't have any guidance. And it's disheartening, right? It almost brings you to tears when you think about the destructive path that a lot of women that we see are on, the destructive path and what it looks like. And then these people got to get together and have babies, and the whole union and the kid is born out of dysfunction. So I'm gonna stop there because but I'm gonna stop there. But this rabbit hole goes deep. So I'm gonna yield the mic back to Tony Watts.
Yes, the rabbit hole does go deep, and we're gonna get as deep as possible this evening. So I'm also a part of a men's group called Legacy for Men Empowerment Group. And during the pandemic, we would have a lot of Zoom calls and just kick it about what's going on. So upon one of our conversations, I'm listening to the men, and it hit me So I asked this particular question. How many of you know your great-grandfather? Do you know his name? Do you know what he did? Do you know what he did for a living? Nobody. How many of you know your grandfather? I kind of know him. Yeah, he was here, he was there. Did you know what he did? Did you know what he stood for? Was the parents still, your grandparents still married? And then when you start filtering down for those who, I'm going to say, for lack of a better number, I'm going to say there was 12 people on the call. It was more than that, I'm going to say 12. Out of the 12 people that were on the call, 80% did not know this information solidly, right? So that means within a generation, we have 80% of the people who are on my particular call. I'm not saying 80% of men. I'm saying 80% of the people that were on my particular call did not know their great-grandfathers or their great-grandfathers, right? So where is the tie to teach you how to be this man that you're supposed to be? Where is this generational things that's passed down of how you should act, right? We lose that, right? Because what we've done is, and again, it's not blaming women. We transfer that transfer of information to women to raise the child, to make a boy, to make a boy a man. We transfer that, and that's not transferable.
No.
I don't care how great. My mother is an amazing woman. Amazing. Quick story. I was 18, 19 years old. I was on the block with my boys coming from the store, and she said something. She said, "Boy, didn't I ask you to do XYZ in your room?" I'm 19 years old. I'm solid. I'm a football player. I'm destroying people on the football field. I suck my teeth. The store at the corner to my house is in the middle of the block. My mother beat me from the corner to my house. My boys laughing. Get to the house. She turns around and said, "He won't see you for a week." Now talking about strength, she had the strength to do that, but it took my step pops to mold me into a different understanding. So I'm not taking anything away from women. I'm just pointing out that there's been a lack of leadership in our community across the board, and we have to bring that back because, like we all just said, right? There is nothing that is more prevalent than young men looking for leadership. Why do they fall into gangs if they're not looking for leadership? Because you don't get in the gang and become the boss. There's somebody in the gang you look up to. You look for guidance to tell you how to operate within the gang culture, right? So if they're looking for that, right, why don't we start stepping up as solid men and let them get that view as well? Because we have totally moved away from what being a gangster is, for real. And in this play, I'm gonna use you for what I need to use you for, right? So we need to get back to a solid standing of what manhood looks like across the board. Now, I don't take kindly to the toxic masculinity thing because we have taken it too far. Now, there is toxicity when I get out of hand and I show my bravado and I try to down talk a woman and all of that. I'm calling Tony Massey. He's this, that, and the other because he was crying on the live with me and I'm downplaying him. Of course, that's absolutely wrong. But if I show up as a man and I tell you no forcefully, if I say we're not doing that, we're doing something else, and you take it as being toxic, then you have a problem. That is absolutely the wrong. That's the absolutely wrong behavior. And what I want to put out here before we go around the table again, women are gonna hate me for this one. If you don't want a strong man, right? A man has his masculinity. Why, when you ask a woman what kind of man they want, they want someone that is respectful with a little hood in them. What's the hood? What's the hood? The hood is you don't take no chunk from nobody. Right. So Tony, I'm gonna let you jump into that. We'll go around again.
No, I love it. I mean, I don't believe that masculinity within itself is toxic. But I do think that masculinity can be toxic, especially if it's being displayed by people who don't know what masculinity looks like.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like someone acting in a way that they think something is, like the concept of acting black, you know, just overplaying and going way too far, because it becomes a caricature of what masculinity really is, right? And so that to me is when it becomes toxic, because you're trying so hard to display these manly characteristics that you're going hard in the paint and going overboard, and now you become toxic.
Right.
And I just want to add one thing where, you know, we not only owe it to our children to raise our children, but we owe it to our women as men.
Right. Come on.
It incenses me that we have the unmitigated gall to complain that black women have become too masculine, without taking responsibility and accountability for the fact that our absence has caused that masculinity.
Right.
We have forced our women, our mothers, to play both sides of the fence. They got to be nurturers and they got to be disciplinarians. They have to be, you know, the comforter, and they have to put their foot down. And it's confusing. I mean, I grew up with a single mother. It's confusing when the person who is telling you how, you know, I love you and all this other stuff, that's the same person who has to spank you when you've done something wrong. Where those are two very different roles. And I'm not suggesting that a mother can't spank a child, but I'm saying that you're right. The most proficient woman will drop the ball trying to teach a young man how to be a man, because it is such a diverse experience. Like, the four of us are all black men, but we all have very different experiences as it relates to manhood. And so as fathers, and I love what John said, I have a son, and my issues with my father didn't really hit me until I looked in my son's eyes, named him, and said, this is mine. And then that's when I had to reconcile with the idea that the person who was standing in my position, you know, 20 years ago didn't do that. What was it about me that made this man look at me and say, you know, I don't want this responsibility. I don't want to do this. Now, I knew that I couldn't do it. I knew that I was inept. I knew that I was not going to be able to, you know, to fully function in this role, because it was bigger than anything I've ever done in my life. But I made a promise to my son that you never have to face life without me. And if you do, because of my, you know, inevitable demise, you will have everything you need to make your son a better man than you are. And you're going to be a better man than I am, right? The last thing I want to throw out is, not only do we need to recognize the men who stand up and be fathers to their children, but we also need to recognize the men who stand up and provide a paternal role in the lives of young men who don't have children. For me, for who don't have fathers. For me, it was my uncles. My uncles stood in the gap. They taught me about manhood. And it wasn't a lesson with a curriculum and all this other stuff. It was, here's how you behave. Here's how you treat a woman. And most of the lessons they taught me were just in the way they lived. It was what I emulate. Like Tony Watts was saying, it was what I started to emulate. It was watching how, even though my uncle and my aunt were divorced, he always made a space for her. She was always welcome in family functions. She always maintained that position of being the mother of my children, and he honored her for that. And I had to honor him for that, because he was teaching me something that one day I was going to need to use. One day I was going to have to, you know, develop a relationship with someone on a different level who I was now divorced to, because that woman still has a place of honor in my life. And despite anything that I may feel about her as a wife or, you know, as a lover or whatever, I still have to respect the fact that this is my son's mother. And I think that part is important. So we got to honor those men who stand up, whether it be family members, whether it be coaches, whether it be, you know, whatever. And I'm not talking about the guys who stand up for with an agenda. I'm talking about the guys who just want to see men be better men. That's it. And to me, that should be your only agenda. If you're selling something for $59.95 or you're hoping to get a shout out when somebody signs a contract, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about the ones who have made a decision that in the absence of fathers, I'm going to at least play a role and let these brothers see what it's supposed to look like. That part is important to me.
Man, can we change the order? I got to go behind that. No, that right there is so major. It's no matter how you cut it, how you slice it, there's going to be families where there is an absence of that biological father. You know, it's going to happen one way or another. Like we're not here to say that we're going to make this some perfect situation where every household has a mother and a father. It's been happening way before we got here. It'll continue to happen. You know, situations, it could be, you know, if they choose not to be there, it could be situations keep them there, you know, all kinds of things. So that's something that's going to happen. But to that point of other men stepping in and filling that role, that is so vital. Like, it is not our job just to be the father figure in our own home, but we need to carry that energy wherever it's needed, and we habitat or go into that space. I remember my son was part of when he was living with his mom before she passed. So down in Charleston, they had the and it's not just in Charleston, because I think they got one out here, but it's the Miracle League, special needs baseball program. And, there were a lot of black kids that were a part of that team, but it wasn't really no black fathers out there. So, when I would go down there on that weekend and, I'm going to get my son and I come out to the games and I get out there. I'm terrible at baseball, but, I get out there and be doing my thing. And I would see all those young fellas, man. And I remember one time, one of the first times I came out there, all of them, it was about 4 or 5 of them. And they all just ran up and just group hugged me at the same time because they weren't seeing black men out there. I was an anomaly, and we've got to step up. And, another point, Tony was talking about it, man, masculinity doesn't have to be loud and boisterous. And I think that's where we make the mistake. It's got to be loud. It's got to be rah. It doesn't have to be that. When you look at the definition of a husband, and we'll just take it here, but you look at the definition of a husband, he's the band around the house. So the job of the husband is to love, to lead, and to lift. So when he's operating in that, you see things like the wife saying, man, he just bring out the best in me. And, the kids are like, I'm inspired. And when the man is walking in that path, then the woman can operate in her true essence, which is to cling, to climb, and to cluster. So the woman is the vine. If the vine grows however the structure is. So if the structure is upright and straight, the vine will grow upright and straight. If the structure is falling down or leaning or slanted, it'll grow leaning and slanted. So that man has to provide that structure, and he ain't got to be loud. He ain't got to be boisterous. Your love just needs to be consistent. It needs to be authentic to who you are. I was having a conversation with my nephew. We were talking about that. He was like, I kind of want to be like you. And I'm like, well, you're not built like me. I was the guy that got in trouble. I brought the heat. You've got a different personality from me. So you can still be a man, but you ain't got to do it the way that I do it, and when you can walk in that authenticity and be a leader and love and be a foundation for your family. And that's what fatherhood, manhood, all this is about, is being a foundation so that everybody else can operate in their roles and everybody can prosper. And so, to talk about that, man, we've got to be able to step up into those places, when we got a nephew, does our children have friends that, fatherless? Can we be, that's why you see it a lot, man. Black men really gravitate towards their coaches in sports because they're that father figure. That's a man that gives them guidance, that shows them that if they commit to a process, that they can become men and that they can have a better life. And that's really what, our children are looking for from us as fathers.
just to jump in real quick, I heard someone say if you're constantly putting your foot down, then it's probably because your feet are up too often. Maybe you need to get to work.
So I'm gonna read some of these comments real quick so they don't get too I'm gonna butcher this name, but Fiel Marie Lewis from YouTube says, just show up. So right, John. Next one we have is Fiel also says, so right, men who steward well, his fam and other people's own should be respected and commended. Lalita from YouTube says, there are men that are physically present, but that's it, which leads to a lot of negative emotions and eventually resentment. Yep. Very, very, very true. And it's something that, like I said earlier, that we as men don't think about. We just think we paying child support, we pick them up, drop them off, or we're in the house, but we playing a video game, or we hanging out with our boys or doing whatever, and we don't think about I'm gonna say something real quick and I'll move to the next one. But I think sometimes as men, we look at the woman as the person that's supposed to kind of hold them and be nurturing to them and kind of be there in those spaces. But there's also space that has to happen where that child has to know that love comes from their dad. It just may feel and look different, but they need that too. And like to I don't know who said it, but I think it was John. When they, in the absence of that, whether they do it subconsciously or consciously, they're always going to look for leadership. They're always going to look for leadership. Like we said in the prior show, you can look on YouTube and see how many of these men are looking for somebody, something to direct them. And it starts from there. It starts from there. And that's why it's essential to not just be a voice, but to let people see that all the voices aren't the same. Like there's balance. As men, we're not all the same. But just because someone isn't rah, rah all the time doesn't mean they don't have a backbone. Because I know sometimes that's the bill that's sold to people, especially to a lot of women. Masculine means he's got to be this guy. And there's a lot of men out here who aren't that are excellent fathers, that are doing what they got to do. And they're not what you would call weak. Because I've been, like, in my dating history, I've had women say, I wasn't the raw, I'm too calm. And I'm like, I'm not that guy, I'm this guy. I'm not going to give you all of that, because if I give you too much of that, then we looking at something else, right? Like, I don't, that's not the dude. Like, and why would you want that? But that's what, whether it's through TV, movies, that's if you're not this, you're not a real man. How many people heard that before? That is very, I hate using the word, but it's toxic. Because that means we all supposed to be the same. Who wants that? Who wants to pick from as a woman, a pool of guys that are all exactly the same? Anyway, that's me. Our fifth man, Rick Hoven, Gunter Man, chimed in and says, "Love you guys." He's in the middle of a noisy week welcoming party. All the best tonight.
Yeah, out there partying. Party man.
And then I think this the last one. It's also a question. Fiel from YouTube says, your kids are looking at you, their parents, growing up, even if they don't realize it. What area do you believe a father should demonstrate growth to his son or daughter? So I don't know. You muted, Tony. I don't know if you wanted to say something.
No, I was saying that's a great question. And I think that, one of the most important things a father can show his children is consistency. Being there and where you're expected to be when you're expected to be there. I think as a man, one of the greatest lessons that I learned from the men, the positive role models in my life, is they were always there. Even if it was begrudgingly, they showed up, whether it was to fix something, whether it was to cook the barbecue or whatever. You could count on them and they wouldn't let you down. And so I adopted that trait of just being consistent. And who I am is enough. I don't have to be someone else or be, anything other than who I am. Just be who you say you were going to be. And I think that goes for our daughters too. We got to teach our daughters that a man who loves you, you don't have to wonder if a man loves you. You don't have to sit here and try to figure out, well, what does it mean when he does this? Or what does it mean? We're not that damn mysterious. We're simple creatures, right? We like what we like. We do what we do. And if we're into something, we go all in. The consumer part of America knows that. The capitalistic part of America knows that. They know that once a man likes something, you can sell him anything within that genre, within that interest, right? Like when I got into cigars, it's not enough just to buy cigars. You got to buy fancy lighters and fancy cutters and fancy ashtrays, and you got to buy fancy smoking jack. They know that once we get into something, we're all in, and they will milk us dry. Whatever your interest is, there's some kind of accessory that you have to have. Even this, So for a man, once he likes something, once he's interested in something, he's going to go hard in the paint. So if he's not, he's just not that into you. But you get that from the consistency of your father. He comes home every night, same time, without fail. You can always count on him to be on the sideline at your football game. You can always count on him to, be at your recital, whatever it is. And then when you grow into becoming a man, you imitate that. Or when you grow into a woman looking for a man, that's what you're looking for. You don't need to find the thug, because you don't have to feel insecure or feel unsafe because daddy's in the other room. He's not out in the street somewhere. You know what I'm saying? There's a male presence in the house. And let's keep it a whole buck. Most people who are going to rob someone, they ain't going to rob you. A man walking down the street is not as vulnerable as a woman walking down the street by herself. That's why we put the woman on the inside. You know what I'm saying? So just that presence, like you said, that presence, that in itself is a security blanket. So you don't have to be the big, strong man, you don't have to do that. Just be there. That's enough. There was a thing that went around where this brother, I think it was on World Star, something like that, where this brother just stepped in. This woman was getting catcalled or something like that. And he just stepped in and just stepped between the guy that was harassing the woman and the woman. And just him doing that, the guy backed off and walked away. That was it. He didn't say anything. He didn't threaten the guy. He didn't pull out a gun. He just stepped in. And if that doesn't speak for the validity of being there, I don't know what does.
I think you need to say it again. We are not that damn mysterious.
Bruh, simple. we are a one-pot meal, 3 ingredients. We are not mysterious. If you wrote a book on how to figure out the male mind, and it's more than a page, you wasted a lot of words.
Somebody listen 4 or 5 things.
That's it. Hey, chapter 1. The end.
So, Derek or John, you want to answer this question, or you guys?
Yeah. We'll get in there. A level of growth. It's funny because I was up in front of my team a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of my troops got up there, and they took a picture of me, and then they captioned it and said, "If old school player with deep pockets was a person," But what they don't know is that the day before I was like, you know what? When I grow up, I want to be like Uncle Elroy on Friday. Like not all the messed up stuff, but them old school players, they always know somebody. Like when you need something, they always got a hookup. Your car ain't working, you need some money. Here, I got $40 for you.
Right.
I take $40.
I'm gonna take that car down to my boy Rick's house. He'll fix it for you for a 6-pack.
Yeah.
And what our children, our sons, our daughters should see as we're growing is the way that we operate in our interconnectivity. Like we're not monolithic. So they should watch us build community. They should watch us have connections. They should watch us. We can't do everything. We can't be everything, but they should know, hey, I watched, my dad when he was a youngster, he tried to he tried to do the plumbing on his own and we flooded out a whole house. But as he got older, I watched him have connections with good plumbers, friends, learn some things here and there. And they should see that authentic growth in just how we operate in running a household, how we connect with. I miss the days when we had real neighborhood and we knew our neighbor's name. And, I'm going to call my neighbor Ernest when something's going on because he got this skill set or that skill set. But they should be able to see us operating in all of these things so they understand that even though we were adults when they came into the world, we still evolved as people. It didn't end because we got to this adult stage, but we kept on evolving and improving our connections and improving ourselves.
Bro, I'm gonna tell you, just to piggyback real quick, I used to think that all black, I thought that you got to a certain age and all black men just knew each other. Right. Because whenever I would hang out with my uncles, they would always speak to other black men. Yeah, always. Yeah. And it was never just a hello. It was all right then. What's going on with you, man? I can't call it. And they were so familiar with one another. And I would ask, Uncle, who is that? I don't know. Some dude at the bus stop, But there was such a level of familiarity that we had with one another, that these men had with one another. It was almost this unspoken. It was spoken, but it was this unspoken concept of I recognize you, I see you as a man. And by virtue of that, I validate your presence. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were not afraid of each other.
Yeah, that I'm gonna read a couple of these comments before they get away from us. But yeah, that's something that I definitely miss too, man. And I when I see people out on the street, I at least make the attempt, even because we share this earth together, right? Even just us five. And Rick is in the comments too, and I appreciate him for even being in the comments and working at the same time. Like that's a testament to how committed we are to this thing. But yeah, that whole we're here to connect with each other, man. And even us here on this show, there's a lot of things that we could talk about that we're more alike than we are different. Yeah. That's the human condition, right? And we have to do this in order for our kids to see better. And the other point I want to make before I go to these comments is I saw something on TikTok that kind of jarred me. And this goes into, we're talking about fatherless generation, but we are also responsible for creating the next generation of fathers. And this thing kind of jarred me because there was a woman on there and she asked a question to the men. How many of you, when you were kids or even as an adult, have ever heard that you're appreciated? And there were over 1,000 comments, and there might have been 3 women out of all the 1,000 comments, and you might have heard yes like 3 times. Like I literally scrolled through and tried to count like how many. And most of them, the comment was never, no, I haven't ever seen this, even from a kid, from my mom or my dad. Think about that. What does that do to a grown man who, if you ask most men what they really would like to have and what a lot of men's love language is words of affirmation. That's the primary one, right? We want respect. And at some point, because we're trying to do a lot and put everything on our back, just tell me you appreciate me.
Come on.
Going your whole life, never hearing that, but still having to go out there and fight the fight. Now, there's some people that say, "Oh, you need a pat on the back." Sometimes you do, just to keep, especially from your family.
Right.
As a little kid, who wouldn't want to hear that? And that thing, like I literally was not expecting those stats to look like that. But then I thought about it, like we not supposed to be emotional, and we supposed to suck it up. And what kind of father does that produce? It's a lot of us that buck the system. Like the gentleman here, we buck the system, but by and large in the community, that thing trickles down.
Yeah.
And so to the question about what do you teach them when they're watching you when they're growing up, you got to show them that you, like, as men, as fathers, we got to show them we don't have to be mushy all the time, but we gotta let them know that we got a heart too. Like, I see you, I appreciate you. You know, you may grow into a teenager, you may not like, you know, me trying to hug you or shake your hand or whatever, but I need you to know that I'm here and I see you. And that goes a long way. So I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna read these comments because people is typing crazy. Let me see here. Okay. TK's Chronicles of a Black Sheep podcast on YouTube says this is a great topic and definitely needed to be discussed. Gunter Man says yes, uncles makes another option for boys to go to when they get, I'm assuming he said meant older, or out of order, one of those. Wifey for Lifey, Alicia Dove Jones says, I always say that even with dating, they will claim you and the world will know. Man. Yeah. I just said this past week. I was like, ladies, if a dude really wants you, he gonna take you off the market. Ain't gonna be no efforts later.
Ain't no kicking the tires. We trying to drive that thing off the lot.
You can check my timeline. She everywhere. Because I don't want my new friends to get confused. I don't want her new friends to get confused.
That's right.
It's me right here, bro.
We talking about fatherhood though, because we don't want them to jump on me again. You know, they jumped on me last week, so we're gonna keep it on fatherhood.
I think you safe this week, sir.
I appreciate it.
Lalita said from YouTube says they must also be their authentic self. Kids know if you're being real or not.
Yep.
Yes, Tony, that consistency of authenticity.
Yep.
Yeah, you got to keep it real. Kids see through that, man.
Yeah, they do. They do. They do, and they see through it, and sometimes you'll never hear it, but the behavior down the line always tells the story. It always does. If you look close enough, the way they move is a result of that. TK's Chronicles of a Black Sheep says, yes, the woman walking on the inside, many people don't know about that. You're right. You're right about that. I've literally had to move and force people. I'm like, no, go. They're like, why are you doing that? And I'm like, you don't like, this is what you literally got to explain it to them.
Yep.
Let's see. Chavez Frazier says crockpots. When we were talking about men, understanding men.
That's our boy Chavez. You know, he cracking jokes with us.
Chronicles of a Black Sheep, TK's Chronicles of a Black Sheep podcast says, my dad is that guy. He speaks to everybody. You would think he knows them, and a lot of times he doesn't. People have made just generally speaking to people so negative. Yeah.
TK, your dad, that dude to be like, yo, man, I can't call if I had your hands. I cut mine off.
I cut both of mine off.
Yeah, it's crazy because now you say what's up or how you doing. They think you're trying to fight them.
Right.
TK's Chronicles of a Black Sheep says, I'm 43 years old and I'm just hearing I appreciate you and getting support from family. Man. Yo, I'm telling you, it's more of us that are in that situation than not. And that's just how things have been groomed, society, TV, whatever it is. It means everything to a man. And it's something that we don't necessarily say out loud, but
I was just having this conversation with my wife. The difference between Mother's Day and Father's Day, just the way it's marketed, man. Yeah. Like Mother's Day, you go to a brunch, you get gifts, it's just everything. And what do you do for Father's Day? Barbecue. And who barbecuing? Daddy. We don't even get Father's Day off. But it's biblical. There's nowhere in the Bible where a woman is told to love her husband. It's respect, because that's how we get love. When we're honored, when we're respected, we're spoken to in a way that shows you know who you're speaking to, but you got to earn that. You got to be that guy. And it's sad that we don't routinely appreciate men. As a matter of fact, we accuse men of being emotional and in their feminine energy when they ask for, or they complain about, or they desire. that type of admiration, and it's sad, man.
So I'm a shift gears since we are bordering on this emotional standpoint of this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about the impact of a fatherless generation. So let's jump into some divorce numbers, right? 80% of women file for divorce. So I thought that was kind of odd. I was like 80%. Like why? What's going on that 80% of women would file for divorce? So what I found out was women filed a divorce for these couple of reasons. It's not cheating. It's not for lack of money. Lack of communication, lack of empathy, lack of feeling supported from their spouse, lack of emotional growth. So when you look at those things, right? When you look at those things up close and you see that 80% of the time when a woman is filing for divorce, she's not filing divorce because you don't make enough money and you're not a high valued man. She's not filing for divorce for that. She's not filing divorce because you cheated on her. These are not the top things why she's filing for divorce. She's filing the divorce because she doesn't have an emotional or communication connection with you. That's why she's filing for divorce. So let's rewind this thing all the way back to where we started out from, right? So when you started taking the men out of the homes, you started making men feeling like they were worthless when you took them out of the home. When the government said, I'm your daddy now, I'm going to give you money, keep that Negro out of the house and you can keep getting paid, right? So think about that for a second. Just think about that for a second. Every statistic to that point showed that a family with two parents was growth. The child would grow. So they devised a system where they would take the father out of the home. Behind that system became the prison system, right? So now I'm not good enough because I don't make enough money to support us in this place, but she can go to the government and get money, but I can't be around the house. I can't do this, that, and the other. So that's pulled out, right? So we start looking at these things. So over the years, right, and I don't know what the statistics were back then. I'm going to look them up later about where the suicidal things began to be popping up heavy, right? Men commit suicide 4 to 5 times quicker than women do, right? Now, one of those reasons, and let's take suicide off the table for 2 seconds. Women outlive men. And one of the reasons why women outlive men is because they play with the grandchildren. Think about that for a second. They have an emotional attachment to the child, to the parents that keeps her vibrant, keeps her alive. So we totally disconnect when we don't work. We don't have that thing. We totally disconnect. We have nowhere to get our outlets from, right? So when you look at the suicidal statistics, right? So they're saying per capita of 100,000 men, 14.2 men commit suicide. That's across the board, all men. 7.2% of that are black males. 7.2% of that is black males. You want to know why that's black males? Let me tell you something. 4.2 of that is because they feel sad. 1.8 of that is because they feel hopeless. 1.8% is because they feel worthless. And 11.0% is all of the above wrapped in together. So if I'm telling you that because you don't make $100,000, you're not a high-valued man. Because I can't pay everything when we go on a date, you're not a high-valued man. Because you can't afford your child support, right? Child support is 17 point something percent, right? So if you make a minimal job and you have your own apartment or your own way you live, and you can barely get by. So, and if I have nowhere to dump that weight, what do? I commit suicide because I'm hopeless, emotionally, and we're not looking at these statistics. Women is, and again, I'm not blaming women, right? This is not a blame on women, but the society is now telling us that we have to be all these things, but don't be emotional. Show no emotion. If you cry, right? If you cry, that means you're a baby. You're not the man. You're a simp. If you marry somebody or get with somebody who has had multiple partners before you, you're a simp. All of this makes no sense. How is a man supposed to navigate through these spaces, right? So now you have a man that's separated because he doesn't know what to do. And now he's getting around these boys and he doesn't know how to talk to them. He doesn't know how to give them a hug. He doesn't know how to, it's okay to kiss a boy on his cheek if he's your son. It's okay to hold him in his arms while you're watching a TV show. It's okay to do that, because how is a boy going to understand the emotional attachment that goes with being a man? And this becomes what we're talking about, the impact of fatherless generations, right? Because we are not showing up in the space, in the timeout. We're not showing up in the humanity that God made us. When God made us, he didn't say, oh, I'm just going to give emotions to women. You guys can't have emotions. You got to just be savages. God didn't say, when I made you, I want you to be a tiger, a bear, a lion, and a gorilla. He didn't say that. He said, you're a man. And all these other things are under your dominion. So when you start saying, I need to mimic the instincts of an animal, now you degrade me, because I've never seen an animal cry. So when you start looking at these statistics heavily, right, you start understanding why our village has moved so far away from where it used to be. And this is one of my missions before I leave this planet, is to rebuild the village in the Black community. We all said it. We miss knowing our neighborhood. We miss that. How do you go down the block, right? Your child goes out, riding the bike up and down the street. Your child disappears. How can you not go to your neighbor and say, have you seen my child? And your neighbor goes, who is your child? Do you understand how crazy that is? Because we're too busy, mind your business. That's my child. I'm going to raise my child my way. Or we use the other thing. Oh, I'm not going to raise my child the way my parents raised me. Did you end up in jail? Did they abuse you outside of giving you a spanking? Did you get your college degree? So what did they do so wrong to you that you won't love them enough to raise them in the same way you was raised, because you were a little bit uncomfortable? I'm not talking about the abusive parents. I'm talking about those parents who are saying, I can't raise my child the way my parents raised me because they were a little bit strict, because they made you come home when the lights came on. Like, those are the things that made you responsible, right? You had a responsibility to some things, right? Part of being a man is understanding your responsibility and your place in the village. That's part of being a man. Where you stand up. If the old lady's walking down the street, I don't ride by on my bike and not help her with her packages. We don't do that. That's not what men do. Men stop. Ma'am, can I help you? And she says no, then okay. But you asked, sincerely asked. And we have to get back to that mindset. And I don't know who said it about coaching, raising kids, right? About how coaches, and it's something that just hit me just now. How many white men do we give our kids over to in sports, and they turn around and say, he was like a father to me? Coach XYZ, as a grown man, was like a father to me, because he didn't have a father in his life. He didn't have a father in his neighborhood. He didn't have that person to look up to in his neighborhood. The reason why the Black community is losing, because fathers and men have stepped away from the ballpark. We stepped away from the plate. We out doing something else. And one of the reasons why this Shop Talk is put together, so we can pull you guys back in. We have to step up. We have two people on this panel right now to salute, because they're in the armed forces, right? When I was young, I couldn't understand that. Why would you fight for a country that didn't fight for you? That shows an extra level of dedication and manhood to get into something and be dedicated to it, right? No matter how much strife, no matter how much toil it went, you got in it, you were dedicated to it, and then you end up retiring. I'm not going to say anything which one it is, but somebody on this particular panel cannot be fired unless Congress gets involved. Think about how strong that is as a man. And when you walk into a room with a bunch of men trying to find out, a bunch of young men trying to find out their place and find out, oh, I don't have to shoot a basketball? You mean I can make it that far in the air, in the forces? I could do that? We have to take the rappers, I love you. Entertainers, I love you. But we have to let our children understand that they are not the gold standard. They're black CEOs making just as much money as basketball players and entertainers, or more. One of the most impactful times I had with my son Christopher, he's 30 now, is when Bob Johnson first sold BET, right? It was a BET Awards, and Bob Johnson got up, and Jay-Z had just had a partnership with the Nets. Bob Johnson says to Jay-Z, right? Jay, I hear you got a little stake in the Nets. So when my team comes up, I think he had the Charlotte Hornets or whatever. So when we play, we can put up a little wager, but don't hurt yourself. My son was a great point guard. So he looks at me and goes, Dad, what does that mean? I said, he signs the checks. He signs the checks. He's a billionaire. He can buy Jay-Z 3 times over. That made my son think. He was like, whoa, you mean I could do that? And these are the images we have to start giving our children. And I'm not saying you have to be that particular man, right? That's a certain different lifestyle, that's a certain skill. We have to understand success is what you make it. The success to you is staying home and building chairs and selling them, and it pays your bills and it pays your rent, and you live comfortable enough to do that, and that's your success. Live in that successful truth. But we have to understand that as men, we have to come back to the table from an emotional standpoint. And we're all going to tell you on this panel, we have no problem with seeing a therapist. If you don't have a therapist, please DM one of us and we will get you to one. Those are the most important things, because there are things going on in your life that you can't grapple with or get by because you haven't dealt with all the stuff in your past. You haven't dealt with it yet. So before I go too far, we're gonna go to John and let him get his off.
I think you traded places with Tony Massey tonight, man.
I'm saying, just randomly go to John. What I do? I just over here minding my own business.
Well, I want to say that, you know, my wife and I had this conversation, and it kind of piggybacks on what Tony Watts was saying. You know, we also have an obligation to the places that we grew up to go back to those places.
Yes.
And I'm not necessarily saying we have to live there.
Yes.
But we do need to visit. We do need to show up in those spaces, because here's the problem with Black flight. We have a generation of men and families who attained a certain amount of wealth, and they left the hood and moved to the suburbs to try to assimilate in what was considered a nicer and safer environment. So our doctors, our lawyers, our business owners, our bankers, all those guys left. And what they left behind was the worst of us. Yes. The drug dealers, the pimps, the gangsters, all this other stuff. And we left all of these young men with no example of what else you could do. So that's why they believe that a microphone or a basketball is the only way out of the hood, because that's the only people that they've seen leave and come back.
Right. One
thing you got to give it to some of these, athletes and rappers, they bring people with them. I mean, you go to a concert, there's 50, 11 brothers on stage, and like Steve Harvey said, everybody got a mic, right? But those are his childhood friends. Those are the people he brought with him. And you see athletes do this all the time. What you don't see is doctors and lawyers and business owners and bankers do the same thing, because now they want separation.
Right.
And I'm guilty of this. I'm not speaking from a pulpit of righteousness. You know, I have this thing about wanting to be in elevated spaces, but I gotta remember who I left behind. And sometimes you don't have to have a conversation. Sometimes you just have to have a presence.
Right.
I remember driving back to my mother's house, stopping at the gas station, and this young brother, probably around 10 or 11. That's your car? Yep, that's my car. What you do? And I told him I'm the head of training for an oil company. What that is. And so this just opened his mind. This conversation just opened his mind to a whole possibility that he never considered. You mean you have that car and you don't do the things that I believe are only available to me to get that kind of car? And what is the training? You know, what is that? It's, again, a whole nother possibility.
Whole nother possibility.
And it was just because I was there, just stopping and getting gas in my mother's neighborhood, that opened up that conversation. We got to go back. We can't leave people behind. You know, that's something that we learned in the military. No man left behind. But we have done a horrible job at that, trying to imitate and emulate people who don't even want us there.
Right.
You know, I don't want to get political, but I wish that we would have concentrated more effort on creating something that was ours instead of demanding to be a part of something that was theirs.
Yes. Come on now. Yep.
That's where we get the Tulsa, Oklahoma from.
Yep.
Right? Because we concentrate our efforts. I remember not only that my neighbors were able to tell my mother where I was at, my neighbors were able to tell me, you ain't supposed to be down here.
Yes. Come on.
You know damn well you ain't supposed to go past that stop sign. Go get back to Belldar.
Yes.
Get back to your street. Right.
Yeah.
And I yielded to that authority because I understood that all these people had the authority to either punish me or make sure that I got punished. And so for me, authority is not a new thing for me. It's not something that I had to adjust to when I got to the military. I was used to being told what to do by everybody. I was calling people sir and ma'am way before I joined the Navy. You know what I mean? Because for me, if you were older than me, I would default to yes, sir, yes, ma'am.
That's right.
And I'm saying this to teenagers because I don't know. I don't know who you are.
Right. Right.
I don't know who you are. I don't want to get in trouble. But we've lost that.
Yeah.
We've lost that sense of, you know, not just the authority that we respect, but the authority that we hold as someone older. I took it upon myself when I got to a certain age and I'm making my own money. I want to invest in the people that are coming behind me. So I used to, before, you know, I used to pay for A's. I didn't pay much because I didn't have much, but I wanted them to see that there's an extrinsic reward for excellence. So my nieces, my nephews, my little cousins, I wanted them to see that you get something out of it today. Because sometimes graduating from high school and college and getting a good job for a fifth grader, that's so far away, I don't see the value in it, right? And so having that allowed me to invest in their lives. And so when they get to that next level, they look back on how they got there, it was the village. And I agree with Tony Watts. We got to get back to the village. Because here's the thing. My wife taught me this African proverb: the child who misses the warmth, or the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth.
Right.
And that when she hit me to that, it makes sense why these kids are tearing up cities like Chicago and LA and New York and all these different places, is because they missed a few hugs.
Right.
And they're literally burning these cities down just to feel the warmth that they missed when we left. Whether we left because we didn't take care of our responsibilities or we left because we were trying to go find something better.
That's right.
Or now, and now we've left our children, our young men. These are the ones that I really worry about. The young men between the ages of 20 and 30, 35, they're still impressionable. Their frontal lobe just grew all the way in.
That's right.
And we left them to these manipulators, these snake oil salesmen who are trying to convince them, like Tony Watts said, that you're not good enough. That because you don't make six figures, you're not a high value man. Well, let's take a look at this. There's a man who literally changed the world. And the brother never made more than $38,000 a year, adjusted for inflation. Right? This man he was universally accepted. But by today's definition of a high value man, he wouldn't have made the cut. His name is Dr. Martin Luther King. Jesus was a carpenter. He wasn't no executive. He wasn't the head of state and all this stuff. There are countless examples of men who don't fit the worldly definition of a high value man, but they didn't just have value. Their value still has value, even though they're not even here anymore. They left a legacy. So you can't tell me you're not high value because you haven't hit your lick yet. The very fact that you are working, trying to become more than you are, the very fact that you are operating in a space of manhood, that's what makes you high value.
That's right.
If you're a black man in America that ain't in jail, that ain't dead, that ain't selling drugs, that's trying to make it in this world, brother, you meet the definition of high value, in my opinion. That's and right. You should be honored for that.
That's right.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I also want to hit a couple of these comments because folks is typing paragraphs. And we love it. We need the engagement is definitely needed, and we want you guys to feel like you're a part of this too, because this speaks to just a small piece of this whole community thing that we're championing here. But a couple of things, just to piggyback on both Tonys, the community, right? The community in the way that it should operate requires respect. If you don't respect, like we always used to say, respect your elders and all of this other kind of stuff. If we don't respect, then we will not absorb the information coming from those people.
Right.
And if we don't respect and we're not absorbing the information, then we're left to our own devices to try to figure out how to be. And when we don't have that, to the point earlier in the show, we're looking for other people to get it from. And we don't have the discernment to know what's right, what's wrong. If it don't feel right, I'ma still follow because I don't have nothing else to attach to.
Right.
And it looks real chaotic. And so that respect is something that we not only need, but it's something that we need to go in and really command and let people see better. To Tony Massey's point, and to both Tony's point, showing them that there are men out here that are doing what they're supposed to do, surviving out here, not rich, but are able to lead their homes, able to go to work every day, work hard, and still be valued to the point of, high value, however you want to call the word. When we see each other as valuable, no matter what your station in life, no matter what age you are, if everyone has value, if everyone can be a contributor with their own unique individual skill sets, then the conversation starts and we can collaborate because, so-and-so down there is a carpenter, and so-and-so is a plumber, and so-and-so is an engineer. Hey, I know somebody that lived down the street on my block. Let me connect you with this person. And then things start to build. And once we build in that way and we're talking to each other, then we then can start to push narratives with bills getting passed and who we vote for as a collective. And I always talk about this without getting political. We can't enforce or pick who we want if we can't even talk to our neighbor. We can't even get two people together to push a narrative.
That's right.
I got to worry about me. What's that got to do with me? Oh, so-and-so down the street was in a car accident. I can see it right there. Let me go ahead and take my camera phone. It doesn't create any. And the thing about this is, and I'm gonna wrap this up, or as they say on Clubhouse, I'm gonna land my plane. We know in our age group, there's a population of us that knows all of this. And we really got to get back to honoring that. Like, we grew up with a code. We knew certain things we wasn't going to do because we had that respect for not just our parents, but our families and our neighborhoods. And now, because we got away from that, for whatever reason, the kids that we raise, if they're raised without respect, you're going to have these little 11-year-old boys punching girls in the mouth and doing all kind of stuff that don't make sense to us. But to them, with no guidance, it makes perfect sense. There's no rules. If there's no rules, there's chaos. There's always a code. I don't care what generation you came from. There was a code. We lose the code. And the code don't have to look like it did when we was little. But there has to be a code. Or everything just starts to implode on itself. And then we talk about fathers. If a little kid grows up without any rules, the fatherhood thing doesn't even make sense. Why should I even stay? What's the point of me even being there? I didn't grow up with a dad, so I never saw how a man I don't respect women now because I don't know what that looks like. So you know what? Staying here for the kid? What is that? Let me just go. You go ahead and handle that. It looks insane. And what we have to instill in our young boys, and we can talk about the girls on another day, but tonight we're talking about men, we're talking about fathers. If we don't instill in our boys young, that if you're not present, there's a catastrophe that happens in your absence. You may not see it today, but if you are not present, that little baby that you're holding in your arms, it's not going to look good. Now, there are a lot of people that grow up and they end up being okay, but most people, you will never hear it.
Right.
But you will see the behavior. This is what I keep saying. The behavior will always tell the story. You'll have someone that say they're well-adjusted, but a woman will say, you know, the last 5 boyfriends I had, they abused me. And I'm like, there's a pattern. The behavior always tells a story. So, hold on. I was trying to get Tony Watts back up here, but I think okay, there he is. Let me put you back in position number 1, sir, when you come in, because I want you to, his thing is, let me try to put him in position 1 and hopefully there we go. Cool. So yeah, it goes deep. I'm gonna read some of these comments and then I know we probably getting close to wrapping this thing, but it's a lot. So just bear with me. Okay. So I did want to read this because it's very important. TK's Chronicles of a Black Sheep podcast says, my dad is an emotional guy. He would cry publicly, hug and kissed on us. My dad provided the emotional and love that I didn't get from my mom. Even though I'm older, he still does it to my brothers and I.
Nice.
This like real one quick point, right, about this. And a lot of us didn't learn this until older. Men, hey, here's a news flash. Men have emotions too.
No.
And even if go ahead, I'm sorry, Tony.
No, I was like, no, really? Men have emotions?
Yeah, right. Like, so here's the thing, men that are listening, right? You don't have to be crying every day and all of this other stuff, but we feel pain. We know what it feels like to not be cared about. We know what it feels like. And when you feeling that, you have to remember that your kid is going to grow up feeling like that too. Is that me? Okay. And
advertising on
what
YouTube.
kind of parent would I be if I didn't say, hey, son,
Live streaming.
one day,
My dad provided.
Is that me? I don't know. I hear echo.
Yeah, it's the echo. It's me. My sister's rebooting.
Okay, no problem. Hey, son, one day you might experience some pain. You may have a girlfriend one day. Happened to me too. It's not going to feel good. If we don't honor our sons and our daughters in that way, we're throwing them out there to the wolves. Because we know, like to Tony Massey's point earlier, when you know better, you do better. You don't just gain that information, recover from it, and say, you go out there and experience it. It's some things they don't need to go find out the hard way sometimes. Like emotional stuff, this is the stuff that controls our actions. Why not give them it's not going to be perfect. But to our daughters and sons, one day you might feel some pain. Stuff as little as that. Because when they experience it the first time, if it's really devastating, it changes the trajectory of their whole life. That one thing. And all the gentlemen up here can tell you we've seen the outcome of this.
I know we felt it. You know, forget
it's huge, and that's why you can be a macho man and still feel some pain and still be able to tell your son, hey, This don't feel good, and I know it may happen to you one day. You're gonna be all right because I got your back. I'm here when you need to talk. It don't sound like much, but it means everything. So
and we've always been emotional. The first man showed emotion. God looked at Adam and said, "It is not good for man to be alone." So that means Adam, in my mind, that means Adam was showing some physical sign, maybe just a. Okay, maybe Adam just
something missing. I don't know what it is.
I got everything I've ever wanted, everything I need, but.
I heard that little song. He was sitting at the tree strumming his guitar.
Right. Lonely. I'm so lonely.
So look, guys, I'm gonna run through these real quick. Fiel, I know I'm butchering your name. Forgive me. From YouTube says women express themselves more than some men, but men just don't feel comfortable opening up to anyone about those feelings. Listed by Tony. Yes, TK. No bashing. Some women do take time to help men heal. Yeah, I think, fellas, we gonna have a show about emotions. But we'll talk about that so we can dig a little deeper into that, because that thing right there that's a whole kind of 2-part show right there when we talk about men and emotion. But we'll get back to that. Fiel also says biblical principle, clear women helpmate to your man. Men not mysterious, LOL. But yes, men need to notify he wants and needs an assist. Yeah. I'm a table that one for that episode.
Yeah, let's put that in the parking lot, because
that
ain't as easy as it sounds.
It's not. We gonna say that for that show, because that one question, it's huge. TK is talking to Fiel, says it's rare, but we have to let me put it up here. That we have to ignore society and do us. Men are human. Why can't you cry, vent, or express your feelings? I'm going to act my guy crazy if he doesn't do these things around me. Yeah, we're gonna say that one for the other show too, because TK's Chronicles of a Black Sheep podcast says mental health is real. There has to be a safe place. I'm one of those people that other people will talk to me when they are struggling. As a Black community, we have to be more open and less closed-minded. Let's see. Erica Warren from Dope Discussions podcast says, when I was growing up, if I got in trouble at my uncle's house, he would whoop me. And when I got home, I got another punishment. Yep, that's how it used to be. Fiel says, love your neighbor. Derek flat out on point. Let's see. Erica Warren says, father wounds run deep. Erica also says many women who are in a relationship with an emotional, unavailable man say they feel like they're single.
Yeah, that's those stats that Tony was reading off.
Yeah. Yep. So that's real. We we talked to. I'm gonna just say this. We talked about that at the top of the show, and like I said, I didn't realize that until this year when it was literally laid out to me that an emotionally unavailable man is just like the outcome looks just like somebody who was never there. Absolutely. That's huge.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Hey, Derek, do me a favor and scroll up to the comments at around 8:54 p.m.
8:54.
I think he means
this one?
7:54.
Yeah, that's my wife.
I knew that was where you was going.
That's my wife, y'all. I just didn't want her to think her
contribution. And on that note, I'm putting my wife older comment up too. You
already showed your wife's comment.
Nah. We doing it again. I got to double down. Look at John. Body language means everything, John.
Don't worry, John.
Alicia Dove Jones says, babe, you already know I sweat for you on that grill. I'll teach a class for chicks to grill and look cute while doing it.
Go ahead, Miss Jones. Mrs. Jones.
Out there, I started thinking about women grilling and looking cute. I was distracted.
Hilarious. Listen.
All right, I'll yield it back to you, Mr. Watts.
All right, so we're at the hour and 30-minute mark. So we're gonna, fresh this thing out and let you guys get some rest, because it is Monday night, and a lot of people gotta go to work and do what they do. But the reason why we had this show is because it's very important that people understand there's a lot of nuances that we have to come to the table and really, I guess, source out. Women have to understand that men are not monolithic. They do have emotions. And one of the thing that came up here is when we talked about the reasons for divorce, right? And one of Erica Warren said that women feel like they're single, right? That's a real thing, right? But the question I want to ask is, right? And again, this is not a blame game. This is about us. Did you ever, at a particular time, when the man showed emotions, squash it and take it for granted? And is that the reason why he's not showing emotions? So that's one reason why he's not showing emotions. The second reason why he's not showing emotions, every person that he's ever been around that acted like they were a man told him he couldn't be emotional. He can't cry. When he got a spanking, don't cry, boy. Don't cry. I say this a lot, and I'll take the heat for it. I think the black church is one of the most emasculating place for black men.
Please say that again.
And I mean it from a single mother standpoint, right? If you are smacking your son around and being very demonstrative with him in public all the time, and sometimes that's needed, but that's your way of communicating all the time to tear him down, you are emasculating that man. You are emasculating him. Right? So if we understand these little nuances, why men disconnect from society, why men find so much joy in playing video games, right? You have to understand there's a psychological reason why I'm going to spend 14 hours of my life playing a video game. Every waking hour of my life, I get to play a video game. You know why? Because I can be a champion, I can be appreciated, and I can be in a community that accepts me for where I am.
Yep.
That's what video games do. Mm-hmm. You want to know why your husband or your boyfriend is always playing video games? Because you're not having real discussions. Unless he's making money playing video games, that's his job. That's a whole different ballgame. But if he has a 9 to 5 and he comes home and he has to play video games to get away from you, it's time for you guys to sit down and talk. I would really behoove you guys to go seek a therapist to figure out what the problem is. Because at the same time, that goes back to Erica Warren's question is, now you feel single because he's found something else to date. Something else that validates him of who he is and what he does. So we really have to allow men to have the space of being human. Okay? We didn't really talk about it, and we have to get out of here, about the unattached or the fatherless in the home, right? You're in the home and you're not a part of the home at the same time. I'm guilty of that. 150% I am guilty of that, right? Something happened. I detached. I didn't know how to handle it. But my kids needed to go to a baseball game. I was there. They needed to go to the doctor. I was there. They needed to be picked up from school because they were sick. I was there. But during that particular time, all the emotional needs, I wasn't there. I go to therapy with my kids now to work through that. And it's one of the reasons why I'm on a platform of getting divorced, because I checked out. And I'm trying to tell, and this is the reason why we're doing this, because I'm trying to tell you don't have to check out. Because when I look back at all the signs, right, all of the flags that came up and said, Tony, you need to do this, that, and the other, I knew better. I just chose not to. Now, I'm not saying this is for all men. Some men don't know how to, because when I checked out, I didn't know how to recover where I checked out at. I didn't know how to make that right. I didn't know what to do there. There wasn't a therapist for me in that particular space. You know, I wish I did have a therapist at that particular space, or someone to say, hey, this is how you navigate for where you are right now, right? Then things would have been different, but I didn't have that. So what we're trying to say is there are a thousand different things why men don't show up and why men check out. And we have to give them rule or an opportunity to check back in. Now, if they decide not to, that's on them. but you have to give them the opportunity to do that. And I'm going to say that from the standpoint of if you're in a relationship and you think your relationship went well and it works well and it was golden and it does veer off, seek counseling. And here's how I think your counselor should work things out, right? You go to a session, he goes to a session. You go to a session, he goes to a session. And you come to a session together. Because what that does is it gives the therapist the opportunity to get to know both of your sides of the story without anybody talking over each other and trying to navigate it through at the same time. Mm-hmm. So 2 sessions alone, 2 sessions alone, sessions together. Because when you're in a space that you're talking about somebody or something that hurt, it's hard to tell the truth. So you have one side of the story, the other side of the story, and then the truth. And that's what a therapist does. So guys, before we wrap this up, let's go around the horn.
I just want to say that, there's another thing that we have to consider when it comes to men not showing up. And it's this idea of what's being called imposter syndrome. There's a lot of men who just don't feel that feel inept. They don't feel capable of doing it. And unfortunately, as men, we have the option to walk away and check out of things that, when it comes to parenthood, that we don't want to be a part of. And some men actually think, I'm so messed up that I think I'm doing this kid a favor by getting out of his life.
Right.
Because if I stay here, I'm going to mess this kid up worse than I am, which isn't true. So they check out, not because they don't have a desire to be a father, not because, they just are trying to, shirk that responsibility. They just don't feel equipped. Because here's the thing about men that I think women need to understand. We like rules. We like to understand the game. Right. If we all sat down to play spades or dominoes, the first thing we would discuss is the rules. We playing Joker, Ace, Deuce, so this Big Six lead, whatever. We discuss the rules and then we play the game. If there are no rules to discuss, if we don't understand the boundaries, we don't understand how this thing works, then we'll sit back and watch. Because manhood doesn't allow you to always learn on the job. The expectation is that you come in with a certain level of expertise. Right. It's just like we ain't gonna sit down across from somebody who don't know how to play spades. Nah, you can learn on this thing. Okay. Right? And that's unfortunate because what better place to learn? Yeah. But we expect you to come to the table with expertise. And again, and I'm not beating up on the manosphere, but this is my issue with it. We are not monolithic. We have not had the same experiences, and there is no singular definition of manhood. And providing comes in many forms. You can provide a idea of what a man looks like, even if you're not the primary provider, financial provider in the home. That's right. You can still be someone who brings provisions to the table. Integrity. Being the type of person that does the right thing even when no one's watching, right? But we have forced manhood into this very small, almost impossible box. And unfortunately, women are starting to buy into this notion that this is real. And now you hear women echoing these unrealistic expectations of men. And we wonder why so many men are saying, I can't do this. And I'm walking away. So Tony Watts is right. If you're in a relationship, sometimes one of the best things my wife does for me is say, how are you doing? And I won't lie to you. And then I'll shut up. I used to be insulted by the question. I used to ask, what is it that I'm doing that makes you think there's something wrong with me? Why are you asking me that? I'm fine. Am I doing something to give you the indication that I'm not okay? Because I didn't want to be not okay in front of my wife because I'm supposed to be strong and I'm supposed to have everything under control. And So what I heard her say was, why are you being so weak right now? Right. What's this chink, this kink in your armor? What she was actually doing was just checking in on me. Hey, I see you got the weight of the world on your shoulders, man. I see you get up every morning and go to work. I see you come home and handle business. I just want to make sure this is just a mental health check, just making sure you're good. And what it did for me when I finally respected what she was doing and honored what she was doing, it gave me a soft place to land without losing my place as a man. And it changed my life. Now I can go to my wife and say, I'm tired, or I'm confused, or I'm scared, or I'm whatever, but I'm never looked at as less than a man because she never weaponizes my vulnerability. She keeps it safe. And then when we get into an argument, she never pulls those things out of a box and start throwing them at me.
Wow.
Oh, you want to be bad now? Just the other day, you were crying on my shoulder. You know, she doesn't do things like that. And so there's a safe place for my stuff, you know, and so I don't have to be the man because she respects me as her man.
Right.
And that's everything. I'm Tony Massey. You can follow me at Tony Massey Speaks, Tony Massey Cooks. I love being a part of this. I have so much respect and admiration for you brothers. Make sure you are locking us in, realshoptalk.net. Appreciate you. I'm muting. John, you next.
All this time I thought I was on mute, man, and I come to find out the mic was hot. I'm glad I ain't say nothing crazy, thinking I was muted. Man, where can we jump in? No, you know, real quick, I just want to throw this out there. One of the things that we teach is 360-degree leadership, and you know, we can co-opt that 360-degree fatherhood. You know, it's important to be a father. It's important to connect with men who are fathers, but it's important also to have that, you know, that lateral support. You know, sometimes us just building each other up as fathers. You know, I got a lot of texts yesterday for Father's Day, but I will be honest with you, the ones that hit the most were from men who I respect and see as great fathers, commending me, and that carried so much weight. And so we need to operate in that. You know, I am a father, I'm a son, but I'm also a brother. And so that fatherhood, it goes into that continuum. So we need to be refining that, you know, and the big piece you just want to talk about there as peers, as brothers, you know, we need to be mentoring each other, lifting each other up, correcting each other if it's needed, and making sure that we're ready to take on the tremendous responsibility of fatherhood. You know, when we step out into the world, we need to step out as that complete man, and fatherhood is a part of that completion. You know, we need to step out and build up our communities, be strong for our women. You know, we talk about this manosphere, but we also talk about being solution focused. We see what the problems are, but we got the solutions. And so we need to encourage each other in every role in which we participate in, and we need to build each other up because it's a heavy load. So, man, and again, you know, I'm just so grateful. I'm glad that the Avengers needed a water boy, so I appreciate y'all so much. Hey, man, everybody has a role and a position to play, so I'm gonna play mine. But
you guys hear Dr. Strange talking that nonsense?
you can find me. My Instagram is on the screen, but at John M. Singletary, and you can also go to www.thehelpmyselfpodcast.com. That'll take you to everything. So, you know, one-stop shopping. Check me out. Got a season 2 mid-season recap dropping tonight at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Spotify, Apple, Google, Breaker, Anchor. So check it out. It's going to be funny. It has some good stuff on it. But again, appreciate the support, and I'm just honored to be amongst this collective of great minds and great brothers.
All right. I'll comment first. And like I said, gentlemen, we got to do a show about emotions, men and emotions, because that's something that we know is a serious thing, but I think a lot of times people, especially women, don't understand how deep it really goes for us. Right. And to the point of this show about fathers, we talked at length about the emotional part to being a dad. And the important part that a lot of us miss is to Tony Massey's point when he talked about his wife giving him a soft place to land. The emotional component that we give to our kids as men, because we know that it's difficult for a lot of us to show emotion, is not just our spouses, but having a tribe of other men, friends around you that you can say, you know what, man, this week, I'm not right. I got to get it together and feel safe saying that. When you create an environment that is a soft place for you to land, then it's easier for you to give that to your kids. When everything around you is chaotic, you retreat and you go into that turtle shell, and you got to be hard because you don't want to be hurt by doing something that looks vulnerable in that person, to Tony's point or to John's point, to throw it back in your face. We're gonna talk about, I'm gonna save that for the next show, but that's a big thing for a lot of men. And I didn't know how, as a man, I didn't know how deep that went until I'm always in the comments. And these dudes by the hundreds are like, I was one time, I was vulnerable, and it got thrown up in my face one time, and now no one will ever get it again. And they're ruined for the rest of their lives. And we got to be able to make it so that we pour into them enough that if it is thrown in their face one day, that they can recover and still be a productive man, a productive member of society. So I'm gonna leave that there because that's, like I said, that's a whole show that we got to do. Hopefully sooner than later, because it's huge. You can follow me. Everybody's information, if you go to realshoptalk.net, connects to their Instagram automatically, and then you can kind of springboard from there. But you can always go to relationshipgumbo.info, Relationship Gumbo podcast on YouTube. All, I think 90 episodes are on there now. So just go in and binge it all and get it in. It's also audio, Relationship Gumbo podcast, Spotify, Apple, everywhere you can get it. Alexa, you can tell Alexa to let you play it. It's everywhere. That's all I got, man. I can't wait for the next one. So I'm gonna yield the mic back to our gracious host.
Well, I thank you, gentlemen, for showing up the way you've always showed up. You guys are awesome. I love you, each and every one of you. I really appreciate you guys being in my life at this point. God has blessed me with a lot of good men over the last year and a half. A lot of solid brothers. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. A lot of solid brothers. And I hope John don't mind me telling this story real quick. I was going through something one day, and my man was going through something at the same time. So he called me so we could talk. So we talking, and me and John, we met on a group that we're in. So we decided that I asked to interview him, so he allowed me to interview him. So we had this pre-interview conversation we're gonna have. So I was like, John, hold on for a second. I got this. I'm talking to my man. So I talked my man through what he's going through, and mind you, I had the weight of the world. A lot of things were shifting in my life at that particular time. I didn't want to, or I didn't have enough in me to pour out the way I needed to pour out. But because it was my man, I poured out into him. I get on the phone with John and start talking to John, and John just stops and goes, I need to pray for you. I had known John live all of 10 minutes. And then he poured everything I poured out back into me. So all the things that I thought that I wasn't going to be able to move through, and I didn't know how I was going to make a way, I knew nothing. It was dark. That moment was dark for me. He brightened it. He showed me that I had somebody that can lift me up on my shoulder. So this is what this is about, right? If Black men show up the way Black men can, it's over. It's done. And that's why I have to bring the village back. Because when we say we can't do certain things, it's a damn lie. We built Rosewood. We built Black Wall Street at the most oppressive times in history. Think about that. We're supposed to have all this freedom. These people built empires. at the roughest possible times when lynching was okay, when the white man didn't want to give us a thing. There was no laws to give us anything. And we built empires. So what? They burnt it down. So what? Let's rebuild it. They can't burn it down now. That's our responsibility. That is our responsibility. Today, this fatherless generation stops. It stops. We will talk to every young man, every older guy who thinks because the mother is so evil and mean and what. Listen, I tell all my friends that have that situation, you show up because they will grow up and they will see who was the problem.
That's right.
You show up. You show up in your authentic manhood. They will see who the problem is. You can't stand around and go, I can't because she won't. Nah, B. Those are your kids. Show up for them. Show up for them. So I'm Tony Watts. I'm the host of Triumphant TV. If you're here, you're on my platform right now. You can also follow me on Instagram at I am Tony A. Watts. I'm just here to try to spread all the Black love that I can. And I want to make this perfectly clear. When I say Black excellence, right? Black excellence cannot happen without the rest of humanity helping us out. And that's including white people. Because the Underground Railroad would not have happened if there wasn't white abolitionists helping us out. Mm-hmm. You couldn't get to the North if all white people said, no, we're not letting them be free. It's a humanitarian thing. I'm just focused on Black people right now. I believe in the human experience on all levels because I serve a big God and he made us in the image of the immortal day. And therefore, when I look at you, I see him. And when you look at me, you see him. And we should love each other until you tell me I need to do something different. But that's the show for tonight. And we love you. We're signing off. Tony Watts, Tony Massey, John Singletary, Derek Jones. And my man is out there in Chicago doing his thing. Big Rick Gunther, relationship.
Gunner man.
We can't do a show about emotion without the Gunner man.
Right, exactly. Exactly. You know, Soapbox Stand Up and Speak. If you're looking for him on the ticker, it has all of our Instagram stuff that you can just go pop in and definitely follow Soapbox Stand Up and Speak. He does an amazing work. And you know, if you want to just make it easy, just pop into the realshoptalk.net and you'll get all our stuff. So again, signing off. We love you. Talk to you soon.
All right.